Welcome back to the Stuff for Whatever podcast. Your host, BQuanchi here. Before we get started, I always like to say the best way to support me on the channel is to like, comment, subscribe, watch, all that. Whether it be on YouTube, you can follow on Twitter for updates and other fun tweets, and on Twitch where I stream gaming, and those gaming VODs do get re-uploaded back to YouTube, so full circle, but BQuanchi, all the social medias, links and descriptions of videos or about the channel, whatever. So we got a very special podcast this week. I did take a little time off because I was on vacation, so there's a little break between streamings and podcasts. Even though this is like a solo podcast of me just yelling to the void and no one's listening, but whatever. I kind of find things I want to talk about. And been trying to turn certain things on the channels. I've been kind of more leaning towards gaming because I always grew up and still do play video games and all that, but I feel like kind of doing like video essays or commentaries or reviews and things like that. And I also been kind of experimenting with kind of a let's play format, kind of like a weekly episode. I think it's been performing slightly better. These numbers are still small and kind of pitiful in the long run, but I don't know, maybe something we catch on because I kind of want to lean towards more like indie demos or things like that. I'm not sure if it's just because if the content's shorter length is a little bit more digestible versus my stream VODs, which are over an hour long usually. Because with my stream VODs, I just kind of like clean up the beginning end, but it's kind of like unfiltered or unedited and all that. So I don't know if that's it, because I don't like cut it down to like just the highlights or just good bits. It's just a stream archive, whatever. But yeah, I've been kind of waiting to see if the Let's Plays will be more of a thing. It'd been just kind of nice just to have like on that variety and stuff like that, because it's like stuff I want to play, or especially like demos. I think the end of game demo has been something I want to focus on because it feels like, okay, this won't make a full stream or just make a very short stream. So instead of tailoring as a very short stream, it's just going to be a little one-off episode, stuff like that. So I don't think I will do the Let's Plays, quote unquote, the Let's Plays as a series and such like a game from start to finish. I've done that a lot of times on stream. There's even playlists and stuff like that. You can look on the channel if you want to see some games I beat, some older games like Super Mario RPG and Yoshi's Island. Some short series too. Like I Raptor was a fun game I never beat when I was younger, so I beat that on the channel and all that. So I think, and Cuphead too. That was kind of a fun one as well. So I think when it comes to like longer sessions and stuff like that versus maybe this game's kind of more simple arcadey or whatever, or just something I just kind of want to show off. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. So I did have a good time off. Nothing too exciting. I just kind of take some time out with the holidays to visit family and all that. My mom did get new puppies, golden retriever puppies. I did have post a selfie of me with one of them. But again, I'm not someone who's online. At least my presence is not that well known. I'm just a little nobody on the internet, but it was kind of fun and all that. But I don't know, it's kind of weird. I said this before, this whole like YouTube thing or streaming on Twitch thing is kind of a hobby. Anything else, but who knows? It'd be nice to have like an extra supplement to income if there's way I can get more experience or resources or knowledge to make things more better in a sense. I think that's why sometimes I'm a little insecure about stuff like that. Like, okay, I want to talk about this game. I'll just slap some footage together, voice over it, and call it a day when so many people do it so better. So, but it's at least something. And I don't know, maybe if it entertains somebody or shows off a game that no one's ever heard of or ideas that no one thought of in terms of how you view a video game or a specific one, all that. So I don't know. I'm just doing whatever just to kill time before I get burned into the crematorium. But that's not going to happen until much later. But a good distraction in the meantime. But who knows? So one thing I really want to talk about, this is something I've been thinking about for a while, is YouTube seems to have like a really big problem with copyright ID and claims and stuff like that. Not necessarily like giving strikes here and there and like destroying channels or anything like that, but a lot of times I think mostly my Breath of Fire playthroughs, I'm focusing on one game. I might do the other games as well, but I get like copyright ID for the cutscenes, I guess, even though they're like older PlayStation 2 games. But I've been getting that a lot, and like I got that in the past too. Like sometimes it'll be like the audio. This is done before podcasts, like the DuckTales when I played the NES version. The Moon thing got copyright ID. A very long time ago. It's not on the channel anymore, but I tried to Final Fantasy 4, and like the prelude got copyright. Even I did the boss fight and the second one in Super Mario RPG, the Cluelix, the Final Fantasy boss. That music got copyrighted claim. And it's kind of weird because some of them aren't like, okay, that's obviously not the right company and right person. Sometimes it's kind of clear as day. So I don't find, like, I even did one for little funny shit post on the channel for a clip from Clarence. I just did like a little audio edit on it, and Cartoon Network copyrighted that. But I'm like, okay, that's fine. Because a lot of times I know it sounds scary when you hear like copyright claim or copyright this when you're uploading content, but a lot of times it's just like, hey, you can't monetize this. And a lot of times they'll take the monetization, so it's kind of annoying. I have seen times where they like share monetization, whatever that means. I'm not sure how it's decided, but I would want to talk about this a lot more because it's been really frustrating. Especially with the Breath of Fire one. Like, if you see my, I think it's just two. Maybe I did a third. I haven't kept track of the stream yet for Breath of Fire 5 Dragon Quarters, but there's like copyright claim, and you can see like the information, like what the content is, what, not like literally what the content is, but like what part of your video they're claiming on that, and it's like 30 seconds, maybe even less than a minute. But because of that, they get full monetization of the video, and I can't monetize it for myself. And it's like this stream VOD is like an hour and a half, like 80 to 90 minutes, and this is less than a minute of whatever the claim. And it is visual because I even played around with, I know a follow-up stream, like I muted the cutscene, it still got claimed and all that. And it's like, and I know it's video because you can't mute it, because sometimes like if it's audio you can mute it, although that gets annoying too. Like if it's a game, I think that's a lot of times people avoid like games with actual music soundtracks, like the Grand Theft Auto games or the Tony Hawk Pro Skater, stuff like that, or they may like mute the music and just talk over with the game sound effects, or just have like an editor put whatever non-copyright music. But it just gets really frustrating. I think the thing that really frustrates me more with it is like the size of the content being claimed versus the size of the actual video. Like a minute compared to 90 minutes, and they're like, nope, that company gets all of it. And I think that's complete bullshit. And I've seen videos online as well, because I even like disputed some of them, as like the DuckTales Moon Level one I disputed. But I think sometimes it's just like companies that somehow get the copyright claim in the system, and they use it to like farm money from content creators. Because again, it does sound scary when you hear like, oh, you got a copyright warning and stuff like that. Even though it's not a strike, it sounds scary. I did see an interesting video. I think it was talking a lot with gaming, like Square Enix and Final Fantasy, and like Final Fantasy 13 I think was the main example that you use on a channel. But a lot of times you can just dispute them. Like you may even have to like copy and paste like a response saying, hey, it's fair use and stuff like that, like commentary, let's plays or whatever, and it usually gets dropped off. Like you really, and I also hear this more so for gaming versus like movies. Like with movies, that's a little bit more like you want to upload episodes of a cartoon or all that. Because I even see that too, like I do watch some commentary channels when it comes to like video essays about cartoons and stuff like that, like Ellis Mark and Saber Spark, and some good examples. I see a lot of times if they show like a small clip from a show, a lot of times they'll like flip the scene, like reverse it or mirror it, and they may have like icons. Like if it's for like a better joke, they may have like their face icon over a character, like representing them. So I've seen a lot of people like either we have like borders or like little like visual, like I don't know what you want to call it, but you notice that with a lot of times with commentary that they would do that to avoid getting copyright. Like some of you even notice like if there happen to be subtitles, you notice subtitles will reverse because the flipping it to kind of like, at least that's my thinking of it. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it just going back, it just gets so frustrating that just a small amount of content, then all of a sudden like, oh, you can't monetize it. Oh, it goes all to this company who had nothing to do. Like maybe it could be more of your personal gameplay, your personal commentary, all that doesn't matter. The other company, just because that 30-second claim, they get the money. And it's being frustrating. Like there was, maybe it was just 2 of the Breath of Fire 5 one. But I remember we did one, and they give you some tools in YouTube Studio. They go, oh, you can just trim it out. And go, okay, I'll do it. And all of a sudden, after it was done processing, it took a long fucking time. Like, I think sometimes it doesn't, but this one took a long time. And then once it was like, oh, now there's a new claim, because you get emails and stuff like that too, and stuff like that, and you get the alerts in YouTube Studio. If anyone's interested, I'm not sure anyone who's listening gets more involved into like uploading content, being a YouTube partner, or all that. And I had like, oh, I clicked the content, and then also like, oh, we found another one. Ever since I didn't have like new ones pop up, so that's good. But I remember one, it had like 5 different ones. And what I had to do is just trim it, and then wait for it to process, and then do a new trim, and then wait for it to process and do a new trim. So it took maybe like 2 or 3 days in between, like, you know, having a life and work and all that. So it's not like I can constantly like refresh and check, because it just, I think just because it's like a 80-90-minute VOD, that's why it took so long too. But it's really crazy. I think, like, even part of that, like, I think one issue with it is that all these creators, with, I think maybe like gamers, like, oh, I had this so much issues because with Breath of Fire, that's a Capcom game. I heard a lot of issues with Square Enix. So it's like, oh, I have so much issues with Capcom game content constantly being claimed, even if it's like 30 seconds, a minute of gameplay. Maybe I won't talk about Capcom games in the future, or I won't talk about Square Enix games in the future. So if the new Final Fantasy game comes out, oh, maybe it's the end of the year, it's the top 10 games of the year, I won't talk about Final Fantasy because I don't want to include them in my video, because either I can't show footage, or I'm worried that my footage would be claimed, and I have to like edit my video and go through all these hoops. I think it was even damaging for companies too. Like, I won't talk about your TV show, I won't talk about your movie, I won't talk about your video games, because I'm worried it's going to be claimed in all my works. And I use that like loosely, because, you know, sometimes people do a really good job with editing in terms of the commentary, presentation of whatever they're talking about. Sometimes, you know, just slap it together. I'm more at the latter than slap it together. But it comes, can you be discouraged from talking about these kind of content, whether it be like movies, games, TV shows, whatever? Because I want to feel like, oh, I want to avoid this, because if I do it, it's gonna just get claimed. I'm not going to get a chance to monetize my video without editing it out or doing something to get around it. And something that I think would help with it is that if YouTube would really like actually support creators, like in terms of fair use, like they can have ways to detect these content, all that, whether it be visual, sound, whatever, both. We just say like, hey, is this the raw like content? Is there talking other elements? Like, is it talking over it? Is it like visual elements and all that? And also like how much of that content? Like if you have a clip, like a 10-second clip of a TV show that's like 50 minutes, like it's an hour-long show with commercial or whatever. Like, hey, the percentage of the content versus its whole content, like how much is being used, and factor that in. Even factor in like how much is the YouTube content. Like if you do like an hour stream, and then there's like maybe like an audio thing from a cutscene or something like that. It's like, I don't think it's fair for like content claimed to be like less than 5% of a video, and then they get all the monetization, they get all that, and you just feel like discouraged in the end. So they can do a lot of like checks and balances, and like I think they just really need to support fair use, because it seems like you had to fight for it. And I don't know everyone's story or everyone's background with it, but it kind of feels like then if you do like, oh, this is fair use, and the other company's like, denied, it's not fair use, or denied, like, why would we want to allow you to make money when we can make money? But then it gets into that whole iffy area where it's like, hey, this is indeed fair use. We are legally allowed to use this content in this way because we're like transforming it or some other way. Like it's just not like your content, like someone's talking over it, someone's doing edits for the visual or audio or both. And I'm not going to be really iffy with especially like movies and music and stuff like that too. So just kind of like checking out like how much the content is being used, how much is the YouTube content. I think that would fix a lot of things, because Sometimes I have to roll my eyes when I see like YouTube posts on Twitter or whatever about like supporting content creators when really they don't. Like, I guess they do, but it really feels like they don't. Like, it's just like when it comes to like even like copyright strikes or even like harsher stuff. I think what's that guy had the big issue with like Funimation, Toei Animation. I think actually not Mark. Cause I know he talks a lot about like One Piece and then his scandal got and like almost like crashed and burned, but I think he recovered. I believe he did, but I'm not sure just because other countries like maybe Japan when it comes to like content, like different laws in different countries like Japan, China, Asia. I'm not sure Europe is as bad, but it's like versus like what is fair use in the USA is different than other countries, and I don't know. I can get how they can affect like, hey, this video is perfectly fine in the US, but in Japan, because of the content and copyright or whatever, monetization might be a little iffier. But YouTube just really needs to fix it because I think my main takeaways, my key points when it comes to YouTube and fixing the copyright problem is like examining like what is the content being claimed. Is there anything elements that affect it, like speak over, voiceover, edits? How much of that content is actually being used, and how much is that content compared to the whole YouTube video as a whole? Because I feel like if they have systems in place to like protect copyright, not protect copyright, protect YouTube creators, then that would make a huge difference. And it's like one of those things like it's like YouTube can do whatever the fuck they want. I don't think and never say never, but I don't think there's ever going to be a replacement for YouTube. Never. They can, because you hear all these fuck ups and all these like controversies or even lawsuits and stuff like that too. But I feel like YouTube's not going anywhere. But also speaking of YouTube, like the monetization issues as well, because it's a big one. I'm not sure if it's calming down, but there was a huge issue of a lot of channels getting like demonetized, limited monetization, and had to do with like language, like profanity or violence, and a lot of like violence with video games. Like maybe like Fortnite would be too violent of a game now, according to YouTube standards, and more like being like advertiser friendly and all that. And it's like funny. Well, I say that I don't know if it's like actually like funny, but it's like weird, strange, because like a lot of the like terms like hey, the first like 8 seconds I say like no cursing or swearing, but if they're swearing consistently through the video, then it can also get limited ads. But consistency is such a loose word, so it's like even if it's not as consistent, like oh, I heard some follow-up swears, like maybe there's 5 more swears in an hour-long video or a 20-minute essay or let's play and stuff like that. I go, ooh, that was too much cursing, even though it wasn't excessive, but I don't know. And I did hear people like trying to repeal them, and then they get denied by manual review and all that. It is like crazy out of control. It hasn't affected me. Again, I'm small. No one listens to me or anything like that. But it's part of my like not really conspiracy, but kind of like that is that I feel like larger channels are getting hit hard. At least people like 100 subscribers or more. Because I feel like since their videos getting more view times, I'm not sure if that feeds the algorithms or these flags or claims and stuff like that. So if a video gets more views and then all of a sudden like, hey, this video has a lot of cursing. Because what I'm seeing from content creators I follow, it's like almost like 2 or 3 days after the YouTube video is published. Like, if this was a problem, why didn't he flag it 3 days ago and I could have fixed it before it would publish and got all these views and all that? So I think that like delayed claim of like demonetization is like fucking people over, and I think that's kind of messed up. But I don't know, it's really something, and it's also kind of confusing why this is happening, like why YouTube seems to be more stricter. Because, like, what was it, a few years ago when they had a huge issue with, like, kids watching YouTubes and getting advertised, the whole COPPA thing? It's like, hey, you're not making kid content. It's YouTube. You literally have a different outlet, a different channel, a different app for YouTube Kids. Like, why are you being so stingy? Like, why are you making, like, YouTube, like, tailored to a G rating for, like, yes, movies? Like, why are you making this a G rating when you're like, hey, kids shouldn't be watching YouTube because of COPPA, because you had all these issues and all that. I heard some things recently, I think from like a game theory, like one of the video film theories or something like that. Like YouTube's going through a lawsuit. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it. I don't know. But also it seems weird too because hey, that's money from advertisers and stuff like that. Like if the creator's losing money, then YouTube's losing money, or more so like the opportunity to make money. Like why limit your ad revenue for not just creator but for yourself? I can get like sometimes it's things like, hey, if there's like a really like fucked up video, would it be like really messed up, like snuff or those kind of extreme violence, something really sexual, something really racist, or something like that, and then all of a sudden an ad play for a company, and they're like, oh, we don't want that on that video because it's like they don't really have much control. I don't know too much about like the advertising thing in terms of how it works, but I know a lot of times it's like, hey, you want to advertise on YouTube? Pay us this much money. I think it's almost like automated. Like we'll slap your videos during whatever uploads or videos. I think a lot of times it's tailored to where the viewer's at. Because I know during like the elections, like I got like the one for Arizona and stuff like that too. But it's like, here, pay us. We'll have a system to display your ads in a bunch of different uploads videos so our audiences can view it and all that. But it just seems like messed up and weird, almost sus. I was going to say suspicious, but I kind of lean more into the word sus. But I feel like YouTube would be making more money if they weren't this strict. Like, they make the ad revenue as well. It's not like 100% of the ad revenue goes to your creator. YouTube gets a cut. And if they minimize that, then they're minimizing the cut that they get. So it's smaller amounts. I don't get it. And I just think it's weird. And it hasn't impacted me just because, well, I don't like swear a lot. I don't play a lot of violent games. Like if you swear, you know. So, but I never had an issue of like, hey, this is limited ad. All my issues have been like copyright stuff in terms of like, hey, this visual from this video game, or hey, this music from this game soundtrack. So besides that, I haven't had too much issues. I just think it's kind of interesting to say. So next, I want to talk about some cartoons I've been watching, and also this kind of leans more towards some of the issues that have been going around with like animations being canceled and all that. Some good series because. Two ones I'm kind of upset. Well, I don't say kind of, but I'm upset about. One I'm really upset about is, and they're both Netflix shows, but the show Inside Job that got canceled, and I'm really upset about that because the second part ended really well, and they kind of like let up like want to see what happens next, and they got canceled. And I thought that was a really really good one. I do recommend checking that out because I think I'm not sure if it's just because of viewership or fan support. They did have a really good voice acting cast, a lot of big names out there like John DiMaggio, and I forget when the comedian who does the mushroom guy and Inside Out, and even like the small names I'm probably not familiar with, but I think that's a really good show overall. And that's like the premise of that show is like a whole organization that's in charge of all the conspiracies and stuff like that and covers up and all that. So I think that's a really great show. And unfortunately, it got canceled, and I'm mad about that. It's really frustrating. Like, I'm not sure if it's like Netflix looking at numbers, or I'm not sure how much the production cost is. Because then you hear like the complaints too, like, "Oh, Big Mouth is getting renewed or whatever." Big Mouth has like 5 seasons. I don't know. I'm really upset about that because I feel like there's more, maybe like 1 or 2 more parts to really finish the series. I feel like that got cut off too soon. And another one I was upset about is I just got into Dead End Park, and like as I finished the second season, like maybe less than a month, all of a sudden it's like, oh, it got canceled, and I think that really sucks. Another interesting thing, I didn't realize that because I thought it looked familiar. Dead End actually had a short, like 5-minute episode on Channel Federator back in the day, and Cartoon Hangover, or whatever you can call it. So kind of like almost like a pilot. It wasn't quite like the show it was, Dead End Park, but it had like Barney, Pugsley, and all them. So it's kind of like the concept, but they had like the 3 of the characters from the show. I thought it was really good. I feel like it was maybe more of a general audience and all that, so it didn't feel like tailored to like an adult taste, like Inside Job was. One thing I really liked about the show is that the representation, like gay, trans, bi, and stuff like that. Like I always know that there's an argument when it comes to like cartoons, like, oh, don't talk about sexual orientation, sex for my kids, but it's not just like sex is like more representation of those, because I'm a gay guy too, and I guess that kind of hits home too. But it's like we just need that reputation, like it's okay to like someone of the same gender, or it's okay to question, look at your identity, your gender, whatever. Because the main character that made trans, I really like that as well because I feel like they just had that representation, the discussion, so people can like, okay, like everyone has their own stories. And I remember growing up, it's always like Prince Charming in the damsel in distress or whatever. So it's like you don't have to shove like, hey, they're romantically involved. Hey, they're gonna kiss. Hey, they're gonna whatever. Just like it's okay to have feelings for the same gender. It's okay to question your gender and all that. And I had to double check that because I know there was character Barney is trans, and that's the one thing that sucks about that show being canceled, is that doesn't get explored more. Because I know there's a huge like, it was a big part of like the first season. Like his grandma was very unsupportive, and it was a big dinner, and she said all these nasty things, but you don't really hear the whole thing is what she said. All that. So I think just kind of like viewing like that whole like, I don't know, just like that hardship it comes with family, because I feel like Barney's parents like supported him, but they didn't want to speak up to the grandmother because of that. So it's like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to like eloquently put into words, but I think the main point is that I really like the representation without being in your face about it, but acknowledging it, because I feel like sometimes they beat around the bush, or sometimes things can get downplayed or even cut out, and like you hear like an interview with a online journalist or whatever, like, oh, this character is actually gay, but it doesn't really get conveyed in the show or the movie or whatever. So literally having to say that, or like say make it more like obvious, but don't be explicit, because you don't have to like shove like romance and stuff like all that, like a little PDA, a little like lighthearted stuff like that. Like again, you see Prince Charming in Damsels in Distress or whatever when it comes to like Disney or whatever, fairy tales and stuff like that too. So just like, hey, it's normal to feel that way when it comes to who you love or who you have crushes on or who you care about, romantic or otherwise. And I think that really sucks. I feel like the part 2 did wrap up pretty good, in a sense that it felt like it concluded a lot of like story, but it left a lot of things open. So I felt like it could have used at least one part, if not 2 more, because I feel like there's definitely more story to tell. But it's just disappointing when you hear things like that when it comes to cartoons, especially. I don't know. It feels like sometimes you feel like, and it could be like you're in your own bubbles on the internet and all that when it comes to like fans loving this show or fans loving that show, and not realize like, hey, there's a lot of people out there, and you don't realize like how big it is like to be successful or popular when it comes to like a series or a cartoon and stuff like that. Because the other one is Velma, and that one has been getting a lot of flack. It just premiered, and a lot of people don't like it, but then HBO Max is like, oh, a lot of people view this must be successful. It did get greenlit for a second season, but I think that's even way before the episodes drop. So I think a lot of times maybe it's just having confidence with the property or what have you, but a lot of shows like the second season is almost like greenlit before it even premieres, and then sometimes it's like wait and see how the reaction is, and it really sucks, because I think a lot of times it's the marketing as well. Like I think Netflix is really weird when it comes to marketing, like especially with the animation. They feel like, oh, this is coming up, and then like it acts like it doesn't really exist, or it could do more. I feel like with live actions, it's a lot stronger, like when Squid Games came out, or more recently Wednesday, because I see a lot of like more posts about Wednesday and stuff like that versus like the Inside Job or whatever. I was having to look it up because another Netflix animation I really like is Disenchantment. Is it just? I think it's just Disenchanted. I might be messing up, but Disenchanted, I believe, the Matt Groening show. that he produced for Netflix or created for Netflix. Because that also has John DiMaggio, and he was also an Inside Job. I love his voice actor. I love his roles in those shows, but I hope Disenchantment doesn't get canceled because I feel like maybe it has one or two more part to really conclude the whole story. But that's another one I feel like Netflix doesn't really market it. Like sometimes with other shows, like getting more live actions, they like post clips here and there, or make a post like, "Oh, it's Wednesday" and stuff like that. Like when it's Wednesday on the calendar day week and all that. So I don't know. And again, I don't know if it's like cost of like producing these cartoons or shows and all that, but yeah, it's just really frustrating as well. You see, like sometimes Netflix would just like greenlight. It was like the joke that Netflix would greenlight any shows, and with the live action, I think sometimes with their competitions too, or game shows, because they have that one like I'm not sure if it's even getting renewed, but it was like "This is cake," and it's like the whole meme of like, is it really cake or is it like this object or is it actually cake? And like, people like big stuff like there was like a sewing machine or a suitcase or whatever. Like, oh, that's not a suitcase, that's actually cake. It had to like, and it was like big. I think it had a modest like cash prizes as well because there was so many episodes. And then they had the one with Harry Mandel called Bullshit. Where they can win like up to $1 million, and it's like if Netflix is throwing all this money for like prizes and these gimmicky shows, then like they can't invest in animation. They can actually make an effort. And I don't know if it's just like this whole adult animation thing. Like if it's gonna be adult, make it explicit. I just remember too, like besides Big Mouth, Chicago Potty Ant or Party Ant got renewed. I think that dropped as well. I didn't even watch that show, but it's like very frustrating when you feel like maybe it's more of the producers or more of the bigger people having control of like what gets created, what is considered successful, what's not considered successful, what's worth investing in a season, what's not. So it just gets crazy. But another thing, I guess, gotta put a little cherry on top of the animation Sunday when it comes to all this stuff. I feel like it's more Netflix. We hear more flack. I know like film was HBO Max, but I feel like Hulu gets a little bit more like supportive because like they're trying to they're working on bringing Futurama back, and I don't feel like this flack with like Hulu series, but when it comes to Netflix, yeah. But I know they had it's kind of old now, but a few months ago they wrapped up JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6, the Stone Ocean. That was really good. I really hope that other parts get turned to animation. I'm not sure if it's going to exist because of Netflix or it's going to be other outlets, but I've been also kind of like diving into, like on my time off, I kind of dive into like commentary videos or whatever about like JoJo's Bizarre Adventures and stands and stuff like that. So I know a little bit of part 7 and 8, and I didn't realize like how I knew like some of the manga was like really old in terms of to when they actually get produced in animated shows and broadcasted and all that. Cause I really like the fighting game as well. I might stream that if I pick it up. But yeah, I've been like dragging my feet with that as well. But like I think still knows. I'm trying to think when the manga came out because it must have been a decade old because they remade the fighting game, and that was much older, and that has like characters from part 6, 7, and 8. So stuff like that. Like realize this content's out there. It just like hasn't been put into animation, and so we'll have to see. But I know Steel Ball Run is the next part, and JoJolion is the part after. I hope those get produced soon. I really want to see those. I've got at least I know the manga exists, but I really like the animation, especially how they did a amazing job with Stone Ocean. So I'm like eagerly waiting, and then I'm kind of watching fan videos as well. I guess another stuff I've been watching on YouTube kind of fell into a little hole, but like I've been watching like a lot of like RPGs, like breakdowns or comparison. There's someone, I think it's Austin Plays, and he was like comparing all the Final Fantasy ports and stuff like that, like the original compared to like I think went on the Game Boy Advance or other versions. Because I know like the remaster, I might do that on stream I don't know. That would be interesting because I want to play more Breath of Fire as well. I don't want to be too much of an RPG player. I have other stuff in my huge gaming backlog, but I kind of want to dive into at least 4, 5, and 6. Maybe revisit them. Maybe even 3. The whole series. I don't know. But it's like one of those things like, hey, if I want to play a game anyways, maybe stream it just to see if anyone else wants to watch. And I think it just kind of makes it a different experience when you have a microphone in front of you and like, hey, I'm playing this game, but also people may or may not be watching. Whether it be now or later if you upload the VODs or keep the VODs and all that. Speaking of which, did Twitch change something when it comes to streams? Because it feels like my VODs sit there more, or because it was like almost to the point that if the VOD is the stream broadcast is a week old, it gets automatically deleted, and there's nothing you do unless you're like your partner or anything like that or affiliate, which I'm not, unfortunately. That's why I'm kind of like adamant about uploading it on YouTube, but we'll see. That's been a change I've been noticing, but I'm not sure if there's any insight on that. But yeah, I've been kind of talking a bit, so I think that will do it for this podcast. So thanks for listening. I know it's been kind of loose because I haven't been talking much into the microphone for the past couple weeks. But yeah, I have like stuff I want to like talk about. And I'm not sure if like just doing a shorter podcast, like a half an hour versus like a longer one, because it's just me, just little old me in this microphone and a laptop that's recording it. But I think that's way it doesn't get too stale. Like I don't want to like try to kill time or fill time. But like I said, also on the channel, I've been working on doing kind of like Let's Plays format in terms of uploads. That might be like 20 to 30 minutes. I think a lot of it's going to be focusing on indie game demos that I found on Steam that I hear about. I have some ideas. One that I haven't recorded yet that I'm kind of excited about. Some, because I do have that weird satisfaction, like, well, I've played this game, recorded my commentary, Let's Play whatever on it, and played this game and recorded my Let's commentary on that too. So like uploads that are scheduled, I kind of like backlog, and I'm like, ooh, I'm excited to see that. But then it just like I think it's just gonna go under the radar. But I feel like it gets a little bit more attention than my stream VOD, so we'll see what works out. And also, I'm just somebody throwing spaghetti at the walls and all that, so we'll have to wait and see. But now that will do it for this little podcast. Comment below. I'm not sure if this is me being rusty or anything like that, but just kind of like, if only I could be professional, like Joe Rogan or something like that. I don't know. But anyways, had fun recording this podcast, but hope you all take care. Have a good rest of your day. And until next time, goodbye.